Now, to start off our 2024 Focus on Post-Production event for Digital Cinema Society, we have my friend Michael Krulik from Avid. He's going to tell us all about Media Composer and all that's new. So take it away, Michael.
Absolutely. All that's new with Media Composer. We had released 2024.10 in October with a lot of new things, but I also want to mention a lot of things that maybe a lot of people don't know about in Media Composer. So the look is a little different, but I do want to mention when we did make the change to Media Composer, people were certainly taken back by the way it actually docked and locked panels and stuff. But you will notice that I do have my Composer window floating. I have my timeline window floating. I have bins floating. This is all set up by a new profile when you are working with Media Composer, where if you go into your settings and user and set up a new user profile, you will see there is Media Composer Classic. Woo! Media Composer Classic is a way of bringing back the look of Media Composer with bins and windows floating, and also brings back the 6 buttons in between the source record window that went away. So we want to bring in the people that were a little, hesitant to moving to the new UI. A lot of people have. There are a lot of people who've made the change because, of course, development isn't happening with any of the older software, but all the amazing things that you will see are in the latest version. You'll also see that there is an option for transitioning from Adobe Premiere Pro. And what this does is you are still a Media Composer, but it makes the UI look like Premiere, and also the keyboard is default Premiere. And there also is a default keyboard for Resolve. So we want to bring in people who, may be familiar with other applications to come into Media Composer and maybe, have a little better experience when starting out. So you have Media Composer Standard, Media Composer Classic, and Premiere Pro formatting for the UI. Now, I am on a laptop. You could be on a 2-monitor setup like a lot of traditional editors are when they are in the edit bay. So you still have your bin monitor and your edit monitor, but I am compressed into a laptop right here. And some other things that I'd like to point out is when you are working with a timeline that, might be a little large feature film or television show, you can go in and turn on what's really cool, a sequence map. And the sequence map is basically a bird's eye view of your timeline. So if you're zoomed in, you can actually navigate around a little panel here. So this is something that it is dockable with the new UI. If you do have the panel open, if you grab the vertical line here, you can take that and drop it anywhere in the UI and actually have that, saved as a certain look that you may want. So these are all workspaces, customized the way that you want. So you can decide how you want to set those up. Some of the other big things with the latest version of Media Composer, everyone's heard of this little thing called AI. Heard of it, right? Well, the way we're implementing AI is with our script sync and phrase find technology. If you're familiar with that, we've had script-based editing in Media Composer for 25 years, I think. Then we brought in script sync, which lets you do some of it sort of automatically. But we've also gone into now the world of transcription. A lot of people, whether you're working unscripted, and even you're finding in scripted that there might be some really good uses for the ways to use transcription in Media Composer. So one thing we introduced in several versions ago is a way to, take a clip you may have in the source. Here we have Susan Vale, editor of Hacks. Hey, turn it up a little bit.
For the daily and Hacker System.
And Grey's Anatomy. This is like a 44-minute interview. If I go and look for the clip in the bin and right-click, we do have options for transcript. And what you'll see is you can transcribe it. Now, by the way, any transcription is done locally. This is not going to the cloud. So it's all done on the system, great for security. But the nice thing is, even if you're working on this system, there are ways to export the transcription to another project so other people who are using the project or media don't have to retranscribe it. There's also create script from clip, export transcript, and this is where you're sharing a transcript. So if I go to create script from clip, this actually has gone in and sort of done a script style transcription. Let me see if I can zoom in. Nope, it's not letting me do it. Oh, there we are. Where you can see this is the transcript from her interview, everything that she's saying. If I want to go to the point where she's like, it was working remotely during the pandemic was really tough, actually. If I double click on that one, I zoomed out, I forget where that was. Let me just choose another one. I love any documentary that involves music. I double click, takes me right to.
I also love any documentaries that involve music.
So this is a great way to see a transcript, but go to any point of it. Now, this is again using the Script Sync AI, the AI-powered engine within Media Composer. But if you don't necessarily want to work with a written transcript like this, and again, this is just a different way that you may want to work. This is also where in the traditional script-based style editing, you can take a piece of video and just attach it to a script and actually line it. But what we've introduced in a recent version, if you go under Tools, we have the new transcript tool. And this is new to the phrase find part of our AI technology. Phrase find is a great way to say, all right, I know that they said this word, find the clip where they say that word, or find the clips. If I go to the transcript tool, what this brings up in a little sub window, and again, this is a panel that can be docked, is the transcript of the source clip. If I click on any word, look at the source clip, it's actually jumping right to that word. And when I hit play,
Especially kind of thumbnails everywhere, I see really clearly, figuring out
it's actually following along as it's playing.
coverage on another site.
You're also seeing that the highlight's green because green is associated with the source clip, okay? Now, in the transcript tool, you'll also see speaker 1. Now, of course, it can't identify who it is, but I could go into that speaker, right-click, and identify that as Susan. It's now going to go in and change all of speaker 1 to be Susan. If we need to go in and identify any other ones, it will actually change those. Now, this is actually a 44-minute clip, so it is taking a look at that script, and it will go in and change all of speaker 1 to Susan. There we are. You also have the ability with the fast menu, or the hamburger, as everyone who's used Media Composer knows. It looks like a patty between two buns, right? There's the fast menu. We go to the hamburger menu, and we can turn off time code. We could, show the script, show the speaker, or turn off the speaker. You can export this information if you want. So different views here. And for, I'm a little older, everyone likes to go in and change the font size. So we're going to go in and change the font size. And now you definitely can see what that transcript is. All right. So here we have, again, Susan talking about phantom marks or, anything in the system. If I want to search for her saying the word love, love, every time I go in and click, it's going to take me to any instance. So it's also another great way to search through your media. And if I highlight and select a region, look at the source clip. It's actually marking that part of the source clip. So I can actually take that and drag and drop it right into my sequence, or hit the B key to cut it right in. So another great way to edit from the transcription into your timeline. Search for words, search for sentences, and just drag and drop them in. Now I have a little, sequence here that I created. There are a few editors talking about, Media Composer and editing. You have some music underneath. Let me go ahead and play that. So we can drop that down a little bit. Obviously we can't hear the interview, right? If you didn't know this, we've had a tool in Media Composer for a little while called audio ducking. So rather than going in and having to manually go in and draw keyframes, if you right-click in your timeline, here you have audio ducking. There's also a key, you can map it to a key, and there's also a button right here in the timeline. If I select that, I'm going to choose my dialogue tracks and my music tracks. I could also go in and change the parameters if I want, depending on how I want the audio ducked. And if I go in and select duck, it automatically has gone in and added the keyframes around where the dialogue is, so it actually will drop.
Yeah, no, there's one of my favorite things to do.
For that piece of video. Automatic. And you can, of course, go in and select, the keyframes and move them up and down if you want, or change any position. You can also mark a region, because you may have an hour-long sequence. You don't want to go in and duck everything. You can actually mark it in and out and say, just take that region and do that. And audio ducking has been in the software for a while. But the nice thing here as well is subtitles. Now, I do have, again, here's the transcript tool. The transcript is currently on the source clip. If I click this little button right here, where if everybody knows, typically in the timeline, it switches the timeline to be your source or your record. If I clicked here, I'm now looking at the sequence. So the sequence, I want to go to any part here.
Program development numbers.
And if I highlight any part here, it's actually highlighting that part of the sequence. So if I want to cut out him saying no 1 through 6 are video, if I hit the X, it actually chopped out that part of the sequence. And because there is a transcription here, you've even taken subtitling to the next level, where typically you'd have a sequence, you would export the subtitle, you'd have to go into the subcap tool and re-import that back in. Well, now, if I right-click on the sequence, go to transcript and choose create subcat, it's letting me choose the audio tracks. If you have 20 tracks of audio, you don't want it to do a subtitle on everything, just the dialogue. Hey, okay. I now have subtitles instantly on the sequence.
Is my reprogrammable numbers.
Very cool. Now, the transcript tool, we support over 20 languages. We actually can work with more. We actually say we support 20 because we know that it will work, but you can take other languages. You can go to transcript and, create the transcript from it. People ask about translation. We're not doing that yet. We are looking into that. But the nice thing is if you go to the subtitle and you go to your effect editor and open up the captions right here, if it does the transcription, you can simply grab that, put that into Google Translate, get the translation, and just cut the translation back in, and it would drop it right into that point in your sequence. Just a little workaround. But again, some really cool tools to be able to go in and do that. Now, just to show you how fast, again, that subtitling is, here is Susan's 44-minute interview. I've cut that in. If I right-click, go to transcript, and create subtitle, it just went in and subtitled that entire clip that fast. No more breaks. No more waiting for stuff to do it. It actually does that, really instantly. Some other things that we've added as well, as far as, audio, is if you have a audio file, a lot of polyphonic audio files, or if you have an audio file with metadata where you have certain tracks set up, you have a, multi-track piece of audio, you have lav mic, you have, background, you have, different people on different tracks. If you take that clip and put that into your source, in the fast menu in your timeline, you can turn on show source track names. So you actually know what track name that is coming into when you're trying to edit. You can actually choose which one you actually want. So again, this is something that manually I think you had to do before. Now it's automatically going to read that information in the system. A cool thing with the sequence map is we can also do that with a bin. So if you are in a bin view, let me go ahead and just fill my bin. Let me make that a little larger. So here you may have multiple clips. If you right-click on the bin, we have show bin map, which has, if you have more clips, a bin of, 500 clips, you can turn on the bin map and actually use the bin map view to just go in and easily scan around that sort of a Google Map view of your bin. We also have opened up some really cool tools for audio workflows. We make Pro Tools. A lot of people do a lot of work in Pro Tools, but you're taking the media and the audio and your sequence out of Media Composer, putting it into Pro Tools. If you haven't seen this, recently we put in the ability to export a Pro Tools session from Media Composer. So the Pro Tools session will actually export a video file and the audio files. You'll open that up in Pro Tools. You can now go into Pro Tools and export a Media Composer compatible file to drag and drop back into Media Composer. So just to show you how what the options here, we've actually added more markers to be more aligned with Pro Tools, because Pro Tools will see these markers as well. So any markers can be exported with the Pro Tools session. You can choose your format of video that you want to have set up. And if you are on a PC, we can now export a ProRes file from a PC. Choose your compression. If I go to audio, we can choose the audio. If you are working on shared storage, you can link to the media, so you're not having to regenerate media back and forth. But if you are on a separate system, you can copy or consolidate the audio files off of this and just open it up into Pro Tools. Now, I'm not going to bring up Pro Tools. I'm not a Pro Tools editor, and I can do like maybe 2 things in it, but that's about it. But what I want to show you is if you do have a file from Pro Tools, and Pro Tools makes the PTXM. The PTXM, the M is the Media Composer compatible file, that if I take that and drag and drop that back into Media Composer, there is my file. That's the Pro Tools session with the audio files. And we just introduced a new function in Media Composer where, let me go ahead and just take all the audio files. I want to change the color to be yellow. So now, if I right-click on the sequence from that file that was brought in from Pro Tools and go to Spot to Timecode, you'll see that it dropped in the new clips right into the sequence where needed. So again, cutting down that extra work of saying, all right, the timecode is here, line up, make a mark, and cut that in. It actually takes the timecode reference and drops it in where needed. We also introduced this new collaborative tool called Avid Huddle. If you've heard of this, this is something we're using Microsoft Teams to send the SRT stream out of Media Composer to anybody on a phone, on a computer, where they can see the output of Media Composer. They can make notes. Those notes are brought back in as markers into Media Composer. And you can also draw on frames and save out that information. So it's just a really nice collaborative tool where typically you're going in to send out a sequence from Media Composer as a file. You email it, you put it on Dropbox, you wait for somebody to actually give you the feedback, when you can actually say, all right, instead, let's go to Avid Huddle. We're going to log into my Avid account because this is something that's licensed. And by the way, you only buy 1 license for the person who's streaming it out of Media Composer. Anybody else just has to have Teams on their laptop or whatever device that they're opening it up on, and they'll be able to see that output. I had a team session that I did with a colleague in London with Huddle and in Toronto all at the same time. They're going to see the high quality output of Media Composer through SRT. Just need it out. And from here, you basically, inside of Media Composer, you have SRT on, and you enable that, and you launch the Huddle session. And then from here, anybody this would be a live session. There it is. So I'm seeing the output. You also are seeing a watermark, so you're seeing who's playing that out. And at any point, I could go in and say, all right, let's make sure we change this. Maybe, get rid of this side. I'm going to save that frame. Take a look at the image. hit enter here, and that's actually timestamped. So at any point, once I go in and close the session out, anybody who is watching this, and again, they all can go in and draw from their phone or their computer also, and also make notes on the time code while it's playing or while you're stopped. And the cool thing is, at some point, if the director is watching and says, hey, take 3 frames off of that clip, you literally could make that change, play it back, and see it for any results. You also are password protected. So if I go in and download the PDF file, and take a look at that, there's what can be printed out for reference. So you get the note, you get the image for reference. And if I save as a text file, you see it's downloaded for markers, where this is imported as a marker list, and those markers are brought into Media Composer and added to what you have. So another new collaborative tool, you can turn it on when you need it, $99 for a year. And again, the only license that's needed is for the editor. So anyway, quick wrap up of that, Media Composer 2024.10, and some stuff that you can use now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael.